Hey everybody, I'm Justin with AmericanMuscle.com and welcome to my best of video for the lowering spring category available for your 9904 Mustang. The purpose of these best of videos is to help you guys narrow down your choices a little bit more when shopping for a set of lowering springs. So we're gonna give you a couple of top picks here on the site, from a mild to a wild drop, in addition to 2 purpose-specific springs to help you with either road racing or drag racing. As always guys, these are just a handful of options that you will encounter on the site, so if you watch this video and still maybe aren't sold on anything we've talked about, feel free to check out the rest of your options here at AM. But why shop for lowering springs in the first place? Well, to be honest, the factory ride height on these cars really isn't all that attractive, so therefore it's usually one of the first things owners fix through aftermarket parts. Lowering your car will not only help improve your appearance, of course, by eliminating that factory wheel gap, but that lower center of gravity will also help improve a few different areas of your Mustang's performance. Now, ultimately, a set of lowering springs will be the easiest and most affordable way to do this when compared to things like coilovers or air ride, which will offer a little bit more adjustability, but at a much higher price point. But how do you know what spring is gonna be right for you and your new wedge? Well, that's what we're here to find out today. We're gonna break down a spring that will give you a relatively mild drop. We're gonna take things a little bit further and talk about a wild drop to get that car down lower for a more modified look. And then we'll break down a couple of springs used for drag racing and road racing. So without further ado, let's get into my first set. First up, we have my choice for the mild drop, and for that, I went with the very popular SR Performance lowering springs. Now, these are going to be the most popular currently in the category for your new Edge Mustang, in addition to being the most affordable as well at right around $150. In my opinion, the SR springs will be a great choice for the SN95 owners out there who want to get rid of some of that wheel gap, get the car down a little bit lower, but without going for the slammed look our next springs will deliver. And speaking of drop, you are going to be looking at 1.5 inches on all 4 corners with the SR Performance springs in place, which in my opinion guys is going to be just the right amount of drop here for the SN cars, because again, it will get rid of some of that wheel gap, but you won't have to worry about scraping on every driveway or speed bump in town. The SR springs also feature what is called a progressive spring rate, and basically what that means is these things are going to progressively firm up the harder they are compressed. And that's something you're going to see with a majority of the aftermarket springs in the category, and for good reason. They're going to be a little bit better suited for those daily drivers out there because of that slightly softer initial spring rate, but will still offer you the performance benefits once you start leaning on these things a little bit harder in turns. Now, specifically, you're going to be looking at a 525-pound front spring and a 250-pound rear spring, respectively. All in all, guys, the most popular spring, the most affordable spring, and an easy choice for my mild drop here for the new Edge Mustang. But what if those SR Performance springs leave you wanting a little bit more? Well, for that, I definitely recommend the Eibach Sport lines, my choice for the wild drop here for the new Edge Mustang. Now, anytime anyone asks me what's the biggest drop they can get with a set of lowering springs, I automatically default to the Eibach Sport lines because they consistently offer the biggest drop in the category for many different generations, including the SN95. Now, as far as specifics with the Eyebox Sport lines, you're going to be looking at 1.8 inches in the rear and a massive 2-inch drop up front, easily making these the most aggressive springs within the category. Now, this is one of those times, guys, where I'm really going to encourage you to check out the customer submitted images to get a better idea of how your own ride might sit with these springs installed or any of the other springs listed in this video. The Sport lines here will also feature that progressive spring rate and more specifically a 550-pound front spring with a 251-pound rear spring respectively. And just like those SR springs we just talked about, the Sport lines here continue to be a favorite amongst Mustang owners with well over 100 5-star reviews on the site, and again, just making them the most popular option when going low is your #1 priority. But what if you're interested in more than just better looks and better handling on that daily driver? What if you're serious about competing with your car, whether in a straight line or on a road course? Well, luckily for you guys, there are a few manufacturers out there producing some pretty killer products to improve your Mustang's performance, whether on a drag strip or an autocross track. Now, if drag racing is your thing, you should definitely check out the Eibach Drag Launch Springs, easily the most popular in the drag racing category for your solid rear axle new Edge Mustang. These things are actually pretty unique because they do feature a mixed spring rate in addition to the inclusion of this little airbag here for the right rear spring. Now the deal with the airbag is that when these cars tend to make a lot of power or torque and launch hard at the drag strip, they tend to squat a little bit harder on that right rear, which can sometimes unload that left rear tire. The goal with the airbag when inflated is to help make that rear end a little bit more level when launching, producing lower 60-foot times. And according to our customer review section, these things are working. Definitely read up on those customer reviews if you haven't already done so. Now the Eibach drag launch springs don't actually lower your car much, if at all, but that's not really the goal here. The goal is those more consistent launches and lower 60-foot times through the unique spring rate and that airbag. As far as spring rates are concerned, you're looking at a progressive spring up front. 342 to 462 is the poundage here. A standard left rear spring, 180 pounds is the number there. And then finally a progressive right rear spring, 180 pounds to 349 pounds with that airbag in place as well. So again, a very technical spring, very scientific if you will, but one that definitely gets the job done at the strip. But what if simply going straight just isn't your thing? You prefer the twists and turns of a road course or an autocross track to a drag strip? Well, if that sounds like you, then you should definitely check out the Stiva Sport springs, one of the most popular in the handling specific category. As far as drop, the Stiva Sports are going to provide you with an 1.25 inch drop for both the front and rear, and spring rates of 650 pounds for the front and 250 pounds for the rear. So definitely a little bit firmer than our first few springs we featured in this video. Now yes, you are going a little bit lower here with the Stiva Sports, but that's not the main focus. Instead, the Stiva goal is to provide you with a much more predictable experience while on the track through what is called a linear or standard spring rate. Now this is going to be a little bit different compared to the progressive rate of our first few spring selections, in that that linear rate will provide you with the same exact spring rate no matter how hard these things are compressed. And ultimately, that's just going to make for a much more consistent experience on the track when pushing your car hard in turns. Now, they might not be as comfortable as those progressive springs because you're not getting that softer initial spring rate, but that doesn't mean you can't daily drive these, as many of our customers have, with great results. Now, handling is your goal. Stiva is always a name I'd recommend for your Stang. No matter what spring you decide to go with for your new Edge Mustang, they're all going to install roughly in the same manner and involve some basic hand tools, including a number of sockets and open-ended wrenches, along with a lift or jack and jack stands and a heavy dose of spray lubricant, as these bolts are no doubt a little old and rusty on your SN95. Now the spring install will be a little bit more different and a little bit more involved than some of the newer generation cars, so I will kick this up to a strong 2 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter and a few hours from start to finish to get everything in place. And after any spring installation, it's never a bad idea to take your car to the local alignment shop to get everything checked out, make sure you're in spec so you're not blowing through tires any faster than you should be. Well gang, that's gonna wrap us up for our best of video for the lowering spring category, available for your 99 to 04 solid rear axle Mustang. I hope it helped you a little bit more on your quest to lower that new Edge ride, and as always, if you have any more questions about any of the springs listed in this video, feel free to check out the respective product pages at any time. I'm Justin, thanks for watching, and for all things Mustang, keep it right here at AmericanMuscle.com.